Shalawam. This is the Hidden Chosen, and I am Hadassah Beth Saiwan. And welcome back to another one of these exhortations that I do every now and then. I call it Thinking Out Loud. And this one is called We Were Hijacked. Discover what happened to the true people of the Bible. I know there's so many people out there talking about the transatlantic slave trade and all the different things that pertain to the Southern Kingdom, but I'm coming at it from a different point of view, so to speak. All right, so let's get started. Our story began with a plot a long time ago to cut Yashraal off from being a nation. We were already divided. Our northern kingdom brethren let me read that again. Our northern kingdom brethren long gone from our land, which left the southern kingdom to face this evil agenda. So let me read that one more time because I think I left a verb out somewhere. We were already divided. Our northern kingdom brethren were long gone from our land. Sounds better, right? Which left the southern kingdom to face this evil agenda. Other nations that were and still are our enemies laid a plan to try to destroy us, to wipe us off the face of this earth. But it was impossible to do this. And so they hatched another plan, which is still in effect today. All right? Our enemies are all peoples and nations who had ever enslaved us, who hate us. They hated us in the past, and they still hate us today, and they will continue to hate us in the future and treat us with disdain. I see it all the time, even in the comment section of certain videos. The things that they say about us. All right? The Christians call Psalm 83 a war to come against Israel. That's what they're all looking at today. All these Christian people, they're looking at Israel, the people living in our land, and all the different things that are going on in that region. And they're assuming that this is either the Psalm 83 war or the Gog and Magog war. All right? And they're using what they call God's prophetic timepiece. That's what they call Israel. God's prophetic timepiece. So when they see things happening in this region, because I'm living in the region, then it means that some other things are going to take place, other events are going to take place that will favor the Christians. So let's read on. But we know it, meaning Yashraal, the southern kingdom. We know it as the greatest conspiracy ever committed against a nation of people called Yashraal. So we know Yashraal, the southern kingdom. Know that Psalm 83 is not a war. It was never a war. It is a conspiracy. In fact, it was a conspiracy, and it still is working to this day as a conspiracy committed against us, Yashraal. Let's look at Psalm 83, verse 3. They have taken crafty counsel against your people, speaking about Alahayam's people, and consulted against your hidden ones. There are some Christians out there thinking that the hostages, I'm telling you, these people, the hostages are the ones that this particular psalm is speaking about, calling them, the hostages, the hidden ones. All right. So now the hostages that the rebels have kidnapped from Israel are the hidden ones spoken of in this Psalm 83, verse 3. Let's look at verse 4. They have said, "Come and let us cut them off from being a nation." So they wanted to destroy us. They wanted to destroy Yashrael. All right? That the name of Yashrael may be no more in remembrance. So they wanted to completely obliterate us from off this earth, so that our name will no longer be in existence ever again. That was the plan. Verse 5. They have consulted together with one consent. They are confederate against you, meaning Alahayam Yahawah. So these are the nations that came together with this grand evil plan to try to cut off Yashrael, but they couldn't, because the thought of them, the thoughts that they had, was to completely erase Yashrael from off this earth, so that no one would ever think that they ever existed. That was the plan. Now, does this sound like a war that is coming? This sounds like something that has already happened and still currently going on today. We were hijacked. Basically, that's what it was. We were hijacked. The definition of hijacked, it means to steal, as in goods in transit, any vehicle of sort. So, people go and hijack cars, lorries, trucks. To commandeer, as in an airplane, they take control over the airplane. So the airplane is no longer going to its designated location. It's now taken somewhere else under the control of those that are commandeering the airplane. To take control of something, to change the topic or focus of something, as in a conversation. To unlawfully seize, as in a vehicle. Although this word is used predominantly for the unlawful seizing of any vehicle of sort, speaking of an airplane, a truck, a car, even a conversation, it is the most ideal word to express what happened to the nation of Yashrael, specifically the southern kingdom. So let us look at the definition of this word hijacked, without the nouns attached to it, without the idea of a truck or airplane or conversation. Let's apply it to us. Right? Let's look at it without those nouns. Okay? Just look at it without those nouns. To steal. To commandeer, meaning to take forcibly. To take control of. To change the focus of something. And to unlawfully seize. Perfect descriptions and definitions of what happened to the true people of the Bible called Yashrael, who are what we know as the Negroes today. Many of our forefathers fled our land called Yashrael. It was named after us. In fact, it was named after our forefather, who was called Yashrael. They call him Israel, but that's not his name. His name was Yashrael. So this was done in 70 AD when our forefathers fled, due to the Roman Empire, who came to destroy our city and our forefathers. Right? They settled in Africa as we blended in. Africans, if you look at Africans today, don't worry about South Africa, because South Africa was taken over by the Europeans. All right? At least certain parts of it. But when you look at an African, what color is an African? Definitely not a Caucasian. All right? Therefore, if our people were Caucasian, we would not have fled to Africa. But our people fled to Africa. This is not the first time. They fled to Africa because they could blend in. Same thing with Egypt, same thing with Matsaraya. They were all the same color, skin color types as we were. The only thing that made us different were the cultures and the languages. That's why our people fled to Africa, because we blended in with them. And our people thought that they could hide there to escape the Roman persecution. So they thought that they could blend in appearance because of our appearance that looked almost identical to them, look almost similar to them. They might be a little darker than us, but it doesn't matter. We all kind of look the same coloring, in contrast to Caucasian. All right? Caucasian is a big contrast to people of darker skin color, like Africans. And there we stayed for some time until the transatlantic slave trade began. Now, we're not going to get into that because that's not what this is all about. Well, actually, it is to some degree, but meaning the actual history of the transatlantic slave trade. All right? The Europeans, like the Portuguese, the Spanish, the French, the Dutch, and the English, captured and traded our forefathers and mothers like cattle. All right? That's what they did. We were then scattered to foreign lands like the Caribbean islands and America to work on plantations as slaves, which were owned by these same Europeans. But it didn't just stop there, for there is more. There's always more. The land of Yashraal, the land that we once owned, was laying empty of its people because the Romans who remained were either killed or enslaved by the Romans and taken away as well. And so it was taken, meaning the land called Yashraal was taken and renamed to be called Israel. It was named after the sun god, Ra. Look at when you break down the word, the name, Israel, look at what it says. Is Ra El? Is Ra a god? It's almost asking a question. And of course, the name ends with El, is speaking of a pagan god, like most names and titles that were changed in our Bible. So any name that you see ended with El is attributed to this same sun god called Ra, amongst other gods. There are many other gods that they have inside that they've implemented in our Bible. For example, Eve. Eve is a pagan goddess. The correct name for the first woman that was created is called Hawa, not Eve. Eve is a pagan goddess. Our land was taken and given to another people to help carry on the evil agenda that was spun a long time ago. They hijacked our land. Yahawah chapter 3, verse 2. I will also gather all nations and will bring them down into the valley of Yahawashaphat. Yahawashaphat. That's Jehoshaphat. Yahashawaphat. Let me say that one last time. Yahawashaphat. And will plead with them there for my people and for my heritage, Yashraal. whom they have scattered abundant among the nations, and parted my land. So that word parted is halag, means to divide, to plunder, to assign, to share. So they took away our land, which is also the land belonging to Alahayam Yahawah. He gave it to us and gave it to these people. All right? We're going to get to that in a minute. For our enemies' plan of deleting us as a nation to be a complete success, they had to get us as far away as possible from our land called Yashwa'al. Remember, this was not the first time taken in slavery. Our forefathers have been taken in slavery throughout their generations. But they never went too far away from the land, especially the southern kingdom. And they always returned. As a matter of fact, how Alahayam had it all laid out is that not everyone was taken from the land called Yashwa'al, speaking of the southern kingdom, because the northern kingdom was long gone in 721 BCE, and they're spread all through Africa and most other places now. But the southern kingdom, whenever they were taken in slavery, they always went back to the land because there was always a remnant still remaining there. So they always knew that they had the land that was still called by their name that they could return to after they fulfilled the time of their enslavement. But this time around, this did not happen because they took us so far away from the land that there was no possible way for us to get back there. They took us in ships. So how can we get back there? When we fled to Africa, we fled by foot because we're all in the same continent, right? But this time around, they take us to the other side of the world. This they did through the slave trade, known as the transatlantic slave trade. Next, they had to change our identity from a chosen people of Alahayam Yahawah to a hated people, only good enough for slavery or servitude. All you gotta do is watch television and see how they portray us. The odd person that you see make it as a star or in a upper position in society, they're sellouts. All of them are sellouts. They had to sacrifice, compromise themselves in order to get those positions. Because the devils that own the majority of, looking for the right word, companies on this earth, they don't like us. And worse yet, they want us, whoever want to buy into their narrative and their agenda, they want those persons to sell out. That's why you see some Negroes making it into stardom, but before they can make it as a star, Hollywood star, they got to compromise themselves. In order for them to make it in the music industry, they got to compromise themselves. They got to sell out. They got to bow down to the gods that run those industries. That's why you see them walking around wearing dresses, carrying pocketbooks like a woman, wearing high heels. And they try to make it look cool and masculine, but it's not. It's an abomination. But they have to do that if they want to make it up the ladder of success in this world. So when you see them, do not crave after the success that they have, because they had to sell themselves to get it. And in selling themselves, they've lost their heavenly inheritance. You can't have both. All right? So they had to scatter us far and wide, far away. Let's read on. But other than that, let me get back to this again. The idea of slavery or servitude. Generally, our people are portrayed either as slaves, servants, or thugs. All right? They changed our names to be that of our slave masters. That's the first thing they did to make sure that we don't even realize who we are, because our names were different. The name Hadassah is different from a British name, a French name. Our names were different because our names reflected Alahayam in them. And that's another reason why they wanted to change our names. As it would have been strange if we had names which reflected that of Yashraal and not similar in any way to the lands of our captivity where our forefathers were enslaved. So they were taken, our forefathers were taken to the Caribbean islands. You had the French, the Spanish, the Portuguese, the Dutch, and the British people taking control over those islands. Now, wherever those Europeans planted themselves, it becomes they call it their soil. All right? And so they will bring their indentured servants from their countries to be the servants in the household. But the slaves had to be the ones working on the plantations, either with sugarcane or cotton, whatever it is. Mostly it was sugarcane in the Caribbean, because that's how they make rum and sugar, molasses. All right? But there were other plantations too. And so the lands that we were living in, the countries that we were living in was not Yashwa'al. Okay? If it was an island owned by the British, then you will find other British slave masters and their servants that came from England, Britain, whatever you want to call it, UK, right? They will be there and they'll be speaking that language, and they will have their own kinds of names, like Elizabeth, and I can't even think of any other British names. Keith, those strange British names. Edward, Henry. All right? So they had to give us names that reflect the slave master. And we could not keep our own names. All right? We couldn't keep our names because this was a plot that had many layers to it. Remember, they couldn't destroy us. Now they're trying to delete us. So when you delete someone's identity, the first thing you do is change the name. All right. They had to be like the countries in every way in which they were living in, if the plan was to continue working for the future generations right up to us today. So to keep this deception and this deletion going, they had to program our forefathers to change their names, and also children born to them must have British sounding names or French sounding names or Portuguese sounding names. Whatever language, whatever European country that had enslaved our forefathers, they had to change their names to suit that country. To ensure that we never became suspicious about our identity, they brought another group of Europeans in our land and called them Israel. So they brought their own kind and planted them in our land. Now these fakers are hailed as the people of the Bible. And most of the world have bought this narrative, denying the true people of Alahayam Yahawah, the Negroes, even today. And they look nothing like us at all. But they look just like the slave masters. A grand plan which worked beautifully. So not only was our identity replaced by that of the slave masters, but also the identity of the true people of the land of Yashraal was replaced by a totally different looking people. How could this plan ever fail? Or remember, there was either president or prime minister of Egypt. He said, Yashraal left looking like Negroes. I'm changing the words slightly because they were said black and came back looking white. So I'm trying to be politically correct. They left the land looking like Negroes and returned looking like Caucasians. Right? Trying to be politically correct because I know some people get a little offended when you use the word black or white or whatever. Right? Yes, they're colors. So you know what I'm talking about. But people know this, especially the people that live in this region. They know exactly what Yashraal looked like before they left the last time. But the ones that are living here are also part of the conspiracy. So they're not going to say anything. Although lately, some other person came out and showed pictures of the saints of the Bible, old pictures of the saints, and they're all Negro. Every single one of them were Negro. They hijacked our identity. This narrative that these Europeans are the true people in the Bible began on May 14th, 1948, when they became the state of Israel. The world was then programmed to believe that this fulfilled a prophecy spoken of in Yasha'oyah, where Yashraal and not Israel will become a nation in one day. This was a powerful web of deception that is still covering the minds of all Gentiles today, because many Gentiles today, especially the Christian ones, believe that the people living in our land are the true people in the Bible. And they think that May 14th, 1948 was a fulfillment of this prophecy spoken of in Yasha'oyah. That's the book of Isaiah. Let's read it. Yasha'oyah chapter 66, verse 7. Before she travailed, she brought forth. And this is speaking of Shalawam. Before her pain came, she was delivered of a man-child. Who have heard such a thing? Shall the earth be made to bring forth in one day? Or shall a nation be born at once? For as soon as Shalawam travails, she brought forth her children. And who are her children? She's speaking of the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom when they will become one kingdom. Let's read on. The nation Israel was a creation of those Gentile nations who had traded our forefathers as slaves to ensure that no one became suspicious. The land needed people to identify with the people in the Bible. And so the Zionists, a branch of the shadow people, created Israel, the state, and Israel, the people. So these shadow people are the people that are controlling the reins of government, controlling governments in this world. They're the puppet masters. And then you have the people that are, you see them on television, you hear them. They're the puppets. What does a puppet master do? They pull the strings and tell the puppets what to do, what to say, when to do it, how to do it. All right? So the shadow people are the people that are running this world that you cannot see. You don't even hear their names being called because they meet in secret, and then they put the programming, the agendas and the narratives out there for their puppets to carry out on their behalf. All right. They're shadow people. And they happen to own most of everything on this earth. That's why they can call the shots. And if you don't want to play ball with them, then they take you out and replace you with someone who will listen to them. Replace that person with one of their own, because they're not of this world, these shadow people. They're Nephilim bloodline. That's why you don't see them on the news. You don't hear about them. You just hear the poster children that they put in place, like Hell's Gate guy and that other Musk guy. They're puppets, and they're all poster children. They didn't create anything. These devils created them, because that's who they are. They're children of the devils. They're the children of the fallen angels, the watchers. And they're the ones calling the shots. Don't think that your government is looking out for you. They care nothing about you. They pretend that they care. They might throw a couple of breadcrumbs out there to make you think that they care about you. But every day they're eroding your rights, taking away your rights to live as a human being on this earth. Okay. So that's who the shadow people are. So you're going to hear me mention them throughout now from this study. Well, this exhortation. The Christian churches today all bought this idea because Christianity, a created religion by these same shadow people, ensured that the narrative proclaiming the people called Israel as the true people of the Bible had fully programmed and brainwashed all who believed in the same narrative about Jesus. Let me read that again. The Christian churches today, every single one of them, even the non-Christian ones, all religions, but we're focusing on the Christians because they're the ones that proclaim Israel as the true people in the Bible. You go online and look up and type in rapture on the boob tube, YouTube. All right? And you're going to see them proclaiming Israel as their prophetic timepiece. And because of what happened on May 14th, 1948, then it starts the prophetic clock ticking for their rapture. All right? Mainly them. So the Christian churches today all bought this idea because Christianity, a created religion, like all other religions, by the way, by these same shadow people, ensured that the narrative proclaiming the people called Israel as the true people of the Bible had fully programmed and brainwashed all who believe in the same narrative about Jesus. So you believe in Jesus, you're going to believe that the people in the land to be the true people in the Bible. It was a superb plan to understand the prophecy of Yahawah, where Yashraal will be birthed as one nation, and one day the false doctrines and the deceiving narratives must all be put aside. You can't be calling on Jesus and expect to understand this prophecy. You can't believe that those fakers in our land to be the true people in the Bible and expect to understand this prophecy. You got to be awakened by Alahayam to understand his prophecies, because his prophecies are only revealed to those he has awakened and those who believe in his son and those who receive his wrought. You can't get understanding and revelation any other way. Not by hearsay, not by a concordance. You get it through his wrought. The 12 tribes of Yashraal were divided into two kingdoms. We're still a divided kingdom. We're two kingdoms today. The southern kingdom and the northern kingdom. To this day, we are separated as two nations, two kingdoms, until we are made one in the hand of Hamashiach in one day, when he returns as Malak on the earth. When he comes back as king, he is going to make us one nation, one kingdom in his hand. For right now, we are separated. This is why Shalawam is travailing. Do you know what travailing means? It's like getting ready to birth. And when a woman is getting ready to give birth, she's in a lot of pain. Those are the birth pangs. Until this reunion event takes place. So when this reunion takes place on Mount Shalawam, when Hamashiach returns to be king on the earth for 1,000 years, the first thing that he will do, yes, he will establish Mount of Olives and change it to be Mount Shalawam, but he will also establish his tabernacle, and then he will bring the two kingdoms together and make them one before Ha'aba. All this is going to be rolling on. It's not one event and then a day later another. No, this is all going to happen one after the other. Almost as one event that is going to take place. Yahazaka'al, the book of Ezekiel, chapter 37, verse 20. Say unto them, thus said Yahawah Alahayam, behold, I will take the stick of Yahweh, which is in the hand of Aparayam, who is Ephraim, and the tribes of Yashraal his fellows. So the tribe of Aparayam was the leading tribe over the northern kingdom. So his fellows would be the other tribes. And I will put them with him, even with the stick of Yahawah, and make them one stick, and they shall be one in my hand. So he's going to take the two kingdoms and make them one in his hand. No other person on this earth can do this thing except Alahayam, who is going to send his son Hamashiach to do this thing on his behalf. Verse 20. And the sticks whereon you write shall be in your hand before their eyes. So if you read the earlier verses, I didn't put them in here because it will make the study a bit too long. Well, the verse too long. The verse is too long. And the reading will be long. Alahayam had told Yahawah, who is Ezekiel, to go and get 2 sticks and write these names on the sticks before the faces of the people. And then put them in his hand, end to end, to make them like one stick. Not side by side, but end to end. Hold them in your hand and they will look like one stick. All right? Verse 21. And say unto them, thus said Yahweh Alahayam, behold, I will take Habanai Yashraal from among the heathen where they be gone, and will gather them on every side and bring them into their own land. Has that happened yet? No, it has not. No, it's not. It hasn't happened yet. We're not in our land. Verse 22. And I will make them one nation in the land upon the mountains of Yashraal. And one Malak shall be Malak to them all. That's Hamashiach, Yahawah. And they shall be no more 2 nations, neither shall they be divided into 2 kingdoms anymore at all. This is what Yeshaiah chapter 66 is speaking of. When Yashraal, let's go back to that. Verse 7. Actually, let's go to verse 8. Who have heard such a thing? Shall the earth be made to bring forth in one day, or shall a nation be born at once? We were born as a nation at once, in one day, in the hand of, we will be born as a nation. It hasn't happened yet. In one day, in the hand of Hamashiach. This is what this prophecy is telling our people today. That even though we are divided, there will come a day when we will no longer be divided. We will be one nation, one kingdom, again with one king over us, living in our own land. All right? That's what that scripture, that prophecy is telling the recipients of the prophecy, which will be the people of Alahayam, who are Yashraal, who are the Negroes. That's who it's telling the prophecy to. All right. The next step in their plan was to change our language to that of their slave masters' languages. So now we have our people with diverse tongues speaking English, French, Portuguese, Dutch, Spanish, and other languages. And that's why people get led astray when they go to the book of Revelation, and when Yohanan saw the people, this great multitude of speaking different languages and tongues and what have you, they assume that is speaking of the Gentiles when it's not. We have been scattered to so many different nations and speaking different kinds of languages. That's who it's speaking of. And not only these languages as well, our northern kingdom people, they're also living in Africa, so they'll be speaking those languages too. All right. But these are the ones that enslaved us. All right, these Europeans. They took our language called Oberai, which is recorded in a number of places on this earth, and changed it to be called Paleo-Hebrew, connecting it with languages of the Canaanites and the Phoenicians. So they want people to think that Paleo-Hebrew is actually the language of the Phoenicians and the Canaanites. They had similar language, but they did not have identical language to ours. Our language, Obarai, is a heavenly language that Alahayam Yahawah speaks, the angels speak, and his people as well. Adam and Hawa, when they were in the Garden of Eden, they spoke the same language, Obarai. But our language, Obarai, was taken away during the time of the building of the Tower of Babel. Alahayam took away our language and gave them 70 languages to confound them because they were building this tower to go to heaven, to storm heaven. And he was like, okay, we need to put their plan, we need to put them down and put this plan down too. So let's confuse them. That's what Babel means, confusion. Babylon, confusion. When Abraham left Ur and was on the way to Canaan, Alahayam restored the language to him. He sent an angel and restored the language Obarai to him. He had some books, but he could not understand the language until it was given to him again from Alahayam Yahawah. And from that time onward, the language has remained on the earth. Okay? And that's why it has been recorded in several places. And what they couldn't steal or destroy, and in fact, they couldn't steal and destroy every single piece of evidence because Alahayam would not permit this. All right. This they did with the hope that we would question the validity of Paleo-Hebrew, to dismiss it and choose another of their language called Hebrew, the language of Israel. That's what a lot of our brethren are learning and calling on the same gods of these pagan people, these pagan European people in our land. They're calling on Yahweh and Elohim and all the different pagan gods that they worship. They even worship Dagon then. I was there and I saw a big sign on their building, Dagon. Dagon is a Philistine god, fish god. I wasn't surprised. I was not surprised. But they looked to those people in our land to learn their language, to learn their culture, to learn everything that they're doing because they think that they have all the answers to the restoration of us as a people. You can't look to them. They made up a lot of the things that they're doing. The language was created because they could not destroy our language. It's a holy language. They couldn't destroy it. All right? And if you think that Hebrew is our language, you're already deceived. It is not our language. All right, let's read on. Similarly to the fact that they could not cut us off, meaning annihilate us, neither were they able to destroy our language. And so they devised another plan. They camouflaged it and called it Hebrew. So they hid our language in their language called Hebrew. That's why you learn the letters of the Hebrew language. And once you learn the letters of the Hebrew language, then you just transliterate when you want to find the true word or name or title that they have written down. So you have the Bible, especially the Old Testament, written in the Hebrew language. And if you want to understand it in the Oberai language, you just need to learn the letters. Understand how their letters correspond to our letters. And it's not that difficult because their aleph is our ah, their beth is our ba, so on and so forth. And once you put our language together, then you'll see that our language is quite a distant away from their language. For example, they will use the word, let me think of a Hebrew word, shalom. All right? When you transliterate shalom from their alphabet letters, you will get Shalawam. You see the difference between shalom and Shalawam? All right. Okay. They say Elohim. It is Alahayam. Big difference. All right. All right, let's move on. They hijacked our language. That's what they did. What they did was to hide our language, Oberai, within their language called Hebrew. Our language can still be discovered if anyone is looking for it. Like our forefather Abraham, who had to be taught our language, so must we be taught once again the true language of Yashraal. It's not that difficult. It's easy to figure out. Just don't get confused with their vowel system. They call points and all this nonsense. Ignore the points. Just learn the letters that they have and apply what they call the Paleo Hebrew, which is our language, and know the equivalent between their language, their letters, and our letters. All right. I did a study on that, a detailed study to explain how to do it. And I also give you examples, short videos with the language, certain verses written out in the language. Let's look at, okay, let's read on. But this too was prophesied about in Jeremiah. Jeremiah chapter 5, verse 15. Lo, I will bring a nation upon you from far, O house of Yashraal, said Yahawah. It is a mighty nation. It is an ancient nation, a nation whose language you know not, neither understand what they say. And this is what happened to our people time and time again when the Babylonians came for us, came for our people. We didn't understand the Babylonians. You had the Greeks, the Medes and Persians, the Romans, and then now, not too long ago, we had the British, the French, the Portuguese, all of them. We didn't understand those languages. All right. The next step in this evil agenda of the shadow people was to change our worship from that of Yahawah to that of Jesus or any other pagan gods that they worshipped. Knowing that Alahayam will respond to his people when they cried out to him was a motivating factor in keeping our forefathers as far away from him as possible. They know that when we cry out to him, he responds. So if we cry out to Jesus for help, they know that he may not necessarily respond. He may lessen the brutality a little bit because he doesn't want our people to be completely annihilated. So he steps in, but he doesn't take away from. But when we call on his name, he steps in and he completely destroys our enemies. Look, go back to the Bible and see it over and over again. Over and over again. So to make sure that we don't cry out to him using his correct name. They had to change our worship. They also knew that our forefathers were commanded not to worship other gods, and so another plan was hatched. The slaves were only permitted to call on the gods of the slave masters, and Christianity took off as a result. This will also be inclusive of the Catholic Church, the Anglicans, and all other denominations that were birthed throughout the ages. All the religions of the slave masters and their future generations. I remember when I was living in the Caribbean, you see, the Caribbean for the most part was very Christianized. It was either Catholic, Methodist, Nazarene, Anglican. One of those there. And I remember the school that I went to was an Anglican school. And how I remember that is because every Ash Wednesday, this priest would come and do his thing. I don't know. Read a scripture, sing a song, or, every Ash Wednesday. So our school was Anglican based. This is what they handed our forefathers. All kinds of religions, but the same gods. Because the same God of the Anglican is the same God or gods of the Catholic, the Methodist, the Pentecostal. They all serve the same Jesus. Just have different denominations, different names, a wide variety to choose from. If you're not happy in a Catholic church, you can switch over and go to a Protestant church. One of those, you go to a Baptist church, you can go to an evangelical church or a Pentecostal church. Any other church, as long as you don't serve Alahayam Yahawah. All right. They hijacked our worship. To make it more confusing, there are many other gods that we have been lied to worship. The Shada people even went as far as to create more religions, calling them Messianic and Hebrew Israelites, Hebrew Israelite camps, with their own gods as well. You have Yeshua, Ahaya. Ahaya is the Israelite camps. All right. Yahuwah also Israelite camps. Yeshua will be the Messianic people. I used to be a Messianic. I used to go to a Messianic church. Oh, yeah. And many more gods given to us to keep us away from Yahawah. Not only were the names of our Savior and Alahayam changed, but the names in the Bible were also changed into the English language to keep the deception going. However, many of these changed names are those of their gods and not even the true names of our forefathers. So you have Eve, said that earlier, and her correct name is Hawa. You have Ezekiel. Why do you think his name ends with an L? The name that they gave him, they assigned to him. Because his true name is Yahazaka'al. And Al is abbreviated for Alahayam. So Yahazaka'al is reflecting Alahayam's title. Sometimes our names reflect the name of Alahayam, either his name or his title. Daniel is Danaya'al, and etc., etc. We have Shamawath, chapter 20, verse 1. And Alahayam spoke all these words, saying, I am Yahawah Alahayak, your Alahayam, singular. personal, who have brought you out of the land of Matzarayim, out of the house of bondage. You shall have no other gods before me. So when they hijacked our worship and introduced us to their gods, then they knew that we would be disobeying this command of Alahayam. And what caused our people to be scattered and be enslaved in the first place? Pagan worship. Time and time again, pagan worship. Committing abominations, eating unclean foods, doing unclean things that he said not to do. Disobeying the statutes, the laws, the judgments. All right. Along with the deception of worshiping the gods of the slave master, the culture of our forefathers was also changed to that of our slave masters. So you know how we used to dress a certain way. All right, they wanted to change the way how we dress and what we eat. So instead of dressing in robes and tunics, and tunics, robes and tunics, now we wear pants and shirt and suspenders and tie and hats like them to look like them. Because in order for the plan to work, they also had to change how we look. We are called to be a holy people and conducting ourselves as such, which includes eating a clean diet. But this too was an evil plan to get our forefathers and their descendants to eat, dress, and conduct themselves like them, to be like Gentiles committing abominations. So you see, they like the pig, and because they ate the best parts of the pig, what the scraps that were left over were the parts that we had to eat, our forefathers had to eat. Not that they had to do it, but they ate it. Otherwise, they had no food. If you go to the countries or islands where our forefathers were scattered, you will find that they have delicacies that many of our people still love, which in fact are unclean foods. For example, ham, which is swine's flesh, shellfish, and such. We were taught by Alahayam not to mix our fibers in our clothing, but that too was changed. These are just a few of the things which our forefathers had to adapt to as slaves or die. And this was all passed on to us today. Because of ignorance, many of our people are still forsaking the commands of Alahayam, choosing to remain adherent to the culture of the Gentiles. So they figured, okay, we were born in the islands, and this is what I saw my grandmother eating, my mother's eating, so I'm going to eat it too, and it tastes good, and nothing wrong with it. You just pray over it, and all will be well. All right? They don't want to give up the pig. They don't want to give up the shellfish, because for some reason they feel that they're going to miss it. They don't want to eat clean. I was raised in the Caribbean, and they ate all this garbage. I ate the pig. My grandfather used to make something called pudding and sauce every Saturday, and I used to help him too. I could tell you the parts of the pigs that we used to do that I'm telling you, it grosses me out now. But when you didn't know who you were, who you are, and you see your family eating this stuff, you go along, you eat it too. We used to eat something, my family used to love it. It was called, oh my goodness, it just came out of my head. And they call it a delicacy. Sea egg. That's why it was called sea egg. And it was a delicacy because they only sold it once a year, or not really once a year, but the season was only once a year. So it wasn't like a weekly thing that they can go and buy. And when the man used to come out, I remember all this. My uncle used to salivate, all right, when when the man used to come out saying, see egg, you know, because he had a donkey cart. I'm time stamping myself here, but he had a donkey cart and he had the sea egg in the back of the cart, and he used to get like grape leaves and roll them up and put the sea egg inside of it, because what sea eggs are is actually those spiky, I think they're called anemones, but they're spiky, they're black, and inside there's this yellow flesh that when you fry it up, it has the consistency of egg. That's why they called it sea egg, right? I think they're called anemones. I think that's what they're called. And he used to scoop them up and keep them like in a container, and then when someone comes to buy it, he will weigh them out and put it in this leaf, grape leaf that he rolled up like a cone, and then you put one of the sea egg shells on top, so it looked like a it was quite an ingenious looking thing, you know. But me now, when my uncle and my mother and grandmother would cook it, they used to fry it up, right? And the smell, oh my goodness. I was a young child at the time, and I hated the smell of it. It made me want to, hurl. And so when they offer it to me, I always decline. I've never tasted it. Never. I just hated the smell so much that I didn't even want to taste it. But they didn't mind because it was a delicacy. It wasn't like a part of a meal. It was just something that they bought whenever it came out, right? But that is an abomination. That is an unclean food because it's a shellfish. All right? But they ate it. Thankfully, I hated it. So I never ate it. But then I ate shrimp. I also ate lobster. And I also ate crab. All right? And they're all unclean because they're bottom cleaners. They're the sea cleaners, the garbage collectors of the sea. All right? So it wasn't hard for me to give those up. In fact, it wasn't hard for me to give up all of the above. I don't care for that stuff. I don't miss it either. I smell it and I just want to run the other way. Let's look at Leviticus chapter 19, verse 19. You shall keep your statutes. You shall not let your cattle gender with a diverse kind, meaning do not mix your cattle. Don't have a cow going with a goat. Oh my goodness. Anyways, you shall not sow your field with mingled seed. And you know, the awesome thing about it is the way how Alahayam created his animals. He created them to go with only their own kind. So you will not see a sheep and a goat going together. As a matter of fact, sheep hates the goats, and they tend to stay away from each other. If you have sheep and goats in the same pen, you'll find the sheep going off to one side and the goats going over to the other side. They do not mix. They do not mingle. But the cattle here that he's talking about, the gender with a diverse, they're different kinds of cattle. All right. So he doesn't want cattle to mix with another kind of cattle. All right. Now, how it was in our forefathers' days, I don't know. But today we have many different kinds of cattle, speaking like cows and bulls and whatnot. Many different kinds. And a lot of them are mixed. If not all of them, they're mixed to create a hybrid breed that could produce more milk or produce more meat. Some of them are even using, got to be careful with my words. Some of them are even, um, okay, let's find the correct word. Their D-N-A- has been changed because they want them to produce more muscle meat. All right? So that when they go to the slaughterhouse, then this one animal can produce a lot of meat to be sold. All right? But it has been modified. So he said, don't sow your field with mingled seed. Don't mix your seeds. So don't mix corn and wheat together. Don't do that. If you have a field and you want to grow wheat, you grow wheat. If you want to grow something else, then you create another spot to make that other crop. But don't mix them all up together. Otherwise, what is going to happen? The two seeds may grow together and create like a hybrid species, and he doesn't want that. Lest the fruit of your seed which you, let me read on. Neither shall a garment mingled of linen and woolen come upon you. So he didn't want them to take the fibers of linen and the fibers of wool, blend them together to create a garment, to make the fabric to make a garment. If you're going to wear a garment, it must either be wool or linen. All right, not a mixture of both. All right. Now, whether he's not talking about, okay, if you have a robe on and it's made of linen, that you couldn't wear a wool garment over that. He's not talking about that. He's talking about the fibers mixing together to create the fabric, like what they do today. You know, you have some garments that are either polyester slash cotton mix, right? And then they sometimes throw a little spandex in there. This is what he's speaking about. Alahayam chapter 22 verse 9. You shall not sow your vineyard with diverse seeds. So now he's going into the grapes. So you can't mix the grape seeds together either. You know, you have the red grapes and you have the purple grapes. Don't mix them up together. All right? Lest the fruit of your seeds which you have sown and the fruit of your vineyard be defiled. What causes defilement? Hybridization. Verse 10, you shall not plow with an ox and an ass together, because they're not equally yoked. Verse 11, you shall not wear a garment of diverse sorts, as of woolen and linen together. So he said a garment of diverse sorts. So he's speaking of a tunic. The fabric that makes the tunic is made up of wool and linen blended together. No, he does not want that. 1 Peter chapter 2 verse 9. But you are a chosen generation, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, a peculiar people, that you should show forth the praises of him who has called you out of darkness into his marvelous light. This is the reason why he has these laws, these statutes, these judgments, and the commandments, because this is who we are. This is who Yashua is. This is who we were, and this is who we are today, and who we will be in the future. A royal priesthood, a holy nation. Verse 10. Which in time past were not a people, but are now the people of Alahayam, which had not obtained mercy, but now have obtained mercy. So in the past, when we were in Goshen, because our people had adopted a lot of Matzorayam's culture and ways, just like how our people always are, right? Alahayam had to bring them out of Goshen, bring them into the wilderness in order to remove the culture of Matzorayam and give them his own culture. And that's why he gave them the laws, the statutes, the judgments, and the commandments, and all the different rituals, all the different things that they had to learn so that they can become now a peculiar people unto him, a unique people, a holy people. Now we are a people because when we hold on, when we adhere to all that he says to do, then we are transformed to be his people. That's why the Gentiles today that are worshiping the pagan gods and eating the pig and all these different things, they cannot be in covenant with him. You have to be first transformed. Same thing with our people that are doing the same things. But remember, we were taken as slaves and handed all of this. In fact, not even handed, we were hijacked. It was forced upon us. Those who rebelled got killed. All right. Because our culture, oh, let me read on. Oh, yeah, I finished that. Because our culture was dramatically changed, this meant that our laws, statutes, commandments, and judgments too would be greatly impacted, so much so that we lived daily breaking them without even realizing it. We didn't know any better. We were going to church on Sunday, calling on Jesus and eating pig. All right. That's how we were programmed. And even to some degree brainwashed. That's why the awakening has to come from Alahayam Yahawah. A person cannot be awakened because they read the Bible and listen to a message and then all of a sudden they realize who they are. People that have done that, you will find them compromising. They will still eat the pig. They will still be smoking cigarettes and pot and doing all manner of wickedness, and yet calling themselves Hebrew Israelites. That of itself is pagan. So no wonder why they can do all of the above and don't feel convicted. But when you call yourself Yashraal, that means that Alahayam Yahawah has awakened you to your identity, and then he gives you his name, tells you his name. He has now awakened you to his identity, and then it continues on from there. All right. They were given to us by Alahayam Yahawah through Masha, speaking of the laws, the commandments, the statutes, and the judgments. And they are the conditions that govern his covenant with us. Because when we hold fast to them, speaking of his laws and his statutes, his judgments, and his commandments, and we walk in them and we walk in obedience to all that he says to do, then it is going to transform us to be a holy people, a royal priesthood. And this is not just an external change either. We're talking about an internal change as well. You see, it starts with the internal and then it affects the outward appearance. Okay? Because Alahayam wants to be in covenant with a royal people, a royal priesthood, a holy nation. He says, be holy for I am holy. He's not going to be in covenant with anyone less than that. That is his standard, and it is set in stone. That's why the commandments were written in stone. Therefore, disobeying them meant that we were and are no longer in covenant with him. So when we break his commandments, we disobey his laws and his statutes and his judgments, it means that we are breaking covenant with him. Laws such as worshiping Yahawah on the correct day called the Shabbat. That's one thing we have to be aware of. You can't be worshiping Yahawah on Jesus on holy day right? Unless it comes up in our calendar. That's a different thing. But many of our brethren today, they worship Alahayam, Yahawah, and all those different ones, Friday evening to Saturday evening. Some of our brethren still worshiping Jesus on Sunday morning. And now all that was programmed into us through these same wicked people. Calling on the true name of Yahawah is also up there with knowing who he is. So instead of calling on the pagan gods, we got to learn to call on his true name. So then we have laws that are against eating unclean foods, celebrating pagan unholy days, or any of the Gentiles' festivals. You know, some of our people still celebrating Christmas, May Day, what the other one? Thanksgiving Day, Valentine's Day. Are people still celebrating those days? New Year's Eve. All right. So there are laws against that. Bowing down to symbols like the cross, which is a modified ankh, a pagan symbol, and many other pagan activities. So the ankh is the cross is a modified ankh, and the ankh is an Egyptian symbol. Their gods used to carry it in their hand. I forgot the name of the goddess that carried it in her hand. But it's pagan. And many other pagan activities our people have adopted, and they still are doing it. And this is what is breaching the covenant. They think that they're in covenant with the Most High, but they're in covenant with someone else. When our covenant with Alahayam Yahawah is broken, it means that we are in covenant with pagan gods instead. That's what it means. You break covenant with Alahayam Yahawah, and quickly the devils jump in there and carry on as if they are Alahayam, leading you to think that you are worshiping the Most High. You see, remember, Satan is an angel of light. He can appear to us in whatever vision or dream or even an idea that he wants to project, to lead us to believe that he is authentic. So we need to worship him. And this is where a lot of our people are. You can't convince them otherwise. Cannot. But Alahayam has not given them understanding, because he's not really interested in them. You see, it comes down to a choice, a heart decision. Who do you really, really want to worship? Do you want to worship him and go his way, or do you want to do your own thing and worship who you think you need to worship? Because over here, you see the physical promises. With Alahayam, you have heavenly promises that you can't even imagine. So a lot of people forsake that because they think, well, I don't even know if this is real, but let me go over here because they promised me this and they promised me that, reparations and all these different things that I can touch with my hand. All right, let's move on. Another brilliant stroke of evil by these shadow people to keep us. Let me see if I read it. Okay, I skip a line, sorry. The actions of the slave masters to force our forefathers to worship their gods and follow after their pagan practices meant that they were in covenant with these same gods. Another brilliant stroke of evil by these shadow people to keep us in their darkness. All right? They hijacked our covenant. Shalawam chapter 23, verse 31. And I will set your bounds from the Red Sea even unto the sea of the Philistines, and from the desert unto the river. For I will deliver the inhabitants of the land into your hand, and shall drive them out before you. You shall make no covenant with them, nor with their gods. They shall not dwell in your land, lest they make you sin against me. For if that sometimes the typos, for if you serve their gods, it will surely be a snare unto you. And when he says that, that means that he will punish you, even kill you too. Look at what happened to our forefathers. Millions of them were killed in slavery even before they left the land. On the boats, on the sea, when they got to the land, millions. They started serving other gods when they were living in our land, and they disobeyed him. And he said, all right, you want to serve other gods? Go right ahead. And look what they got in exchange. A lot of death and persecution. Look at us today as a people. Seriously. All right. Shalawam chapter 19, verse 3. And Masha went up unto Alahayam, and Yahawah called unto him out of the mountain, saying, Thus shall you say to the house of Yaakov, and tell Habana Yashraal, you have seen what I did unto Matzarayam, that's Egypt, and how I bear you on eagle's wings, and brought you unto myself. Now therefore, if you will obey my voice indeed, and keep my covenant, then you shall be a peculiar treasure unto me above all people. For all the earth is mine. And you shall be unto me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. These are the words which you shall speak unto Habana Yashraal. So you see, we weren't just an ordinary group of people. We were a royal priesthood. We were a holy nation. We had a peculiar dress code. We ate clean foods. We had ordinances. All right. We were a peculiar people because we worshipped Alahayam Yahawah, only him. The shadow people raised up numerous denominations of the church, namely the Christian churches, because that's what we're focusing on. But all religions were created by these people, all of them, to further their agenda against us, the true people of Alahayam Yahawah. So this is what they did. It's like layers upon layers of deception. They're going to want to worship. So let's put a lot of denominations, lots of different religions out there for them to choose from, but keep them away from Alahayam Yahawah. Now they need to reassign the prophecies and the promises in the Bible to other people, both Israel and the Christians. And you see the Christians, they've literally hijacked our prophecies. Yes, they have. They've taken possession of all the promises and the prophecies in the Bible and threw a couple at Israel. But they take possession of the greater majority of them because for some reason they believe that the church, the Christian church, is somehow ahead of the people written off in the Bible. I don't know how they get this idea. How did they come to this idea to think that they have superseded the people written off in the book? They see the church mentioned in the New Testament, and suddenly all the Old Testament prophecies pertains to them. And that word church is a wrong word. We were called a congregation, a gathering of people, not a church. And so they have taken what was written down for our people and adopted it for themselves and adapted them too for themselves. Speaking of the Christians, and they threw a few bones to Israel. Now the prophecies and the promises of Alahayam that were given to his people, Yashraal, by the mouths of his own people, the prophets, now belong to these two religious groups of people. Suddenly the Christians are claiming all prophecies regarding our regathering as their rapture verses. Can you imagine? You listen to them today, every single verse in there that talks about our regathering, whether the northern kingdom in the wilderness or our southern kingdom, us as the southern kingdom going up in the chariots. Suddenly now it's rapture. They go to Matthew chapter 24 when Hamashiach is speaking of him regathering his elect from the four winds. That's rapture. Enoch going up is rapture. Elijah going up is rapture. They're the bride now of their Christ. They have this false theology, this false doctrine, talking about them being grafted in to Israel. That's why I don't pay any attention to any of the writings of Paul. That's where they got that false doctrine from. They're not grafted in, not yet. You got to wait to the end of the age. If you continue to worship Alahayam Yahawah and recognize us as his people and serve us, then now you can come in with us. There's no grafting in, because you will not be like us. All right? You're coming in to serve us, and we will give you a portion. In fact, Alahayam is going to give them, the Gentiles, a small portion of our inheritance. But to serve us, they're coming in to serve us. They're not coming in to be priests and kings, or kings and priests. No. They're coming in to serve. They're coming in to be our servants. And if any Gentile has an issue with that, take it up with him. He said that in his word. The covenant is with his people. We are going to be the kings and priests. The Gentiles coming in with us are coming in to serve us. And yes, they will be transformed, and they will be given the same blessings that we receive, which is the tree of life, to eat from the fruit of the tree of life, to have eternal life, to wash in the sea of water, to remove that sin nature. And I got that kind of reversed, because you got to remove the sin nature first and then eat from the tree of life. All of that because they're going to be transformed to be like we are, immortal. But their purpose in the kingdom is to serve us. All right? That's what they're coming into the kingdom for. All right, let's read on. Suddenly the Christians are claiming, okay, read that ready. They get to leave this earth first to escape the great woes coming upon this earth, because they are the bride of their Christ. All right, they want to run away from what was coming. But you see, what's coming is going to try them and test them to see if they will worship Alahayam Yahawah according to his standards. You see, a lot of them still eat pig. A lot of them don't have a problem. I hear some of them Oh, they love drinking beers and drinking all kinds of alcohol and smoking pot and cigarettes and eat all kinds of, uh, like unclean things. They don't have a problem with it because they think that grace covers them, that Jesus came and died for their sins, and so now they are no longer under law, they're under grace. So they have freedom to conduct themselves to be like Gentiles. But the problem is, Alahayam is not going to be in covenant with Gentiles. He will be in covenant with people called after his own name. And those people have to obey his laws, his statutes, his judgments, and his commandments, and conduct themselves as such. And if that goes with our people, Yashraal, how much more will it be for the Gentiles? You think that you could be a Gentile and come into the kingdom? No way. You can't come into the kingdom as a Gentile. You got to be transformed, just like we, the homeborn Yashraal. All right, the offspring of Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov. We were once Gentiles until we were awakened to our true identity. And now we're in the process of transforming ourselves to be Yashraal, to put away all our Gentile ways. And these Gentiles want to come into the kingdom like this. Who they think they're dealing with? You got to put away Jesus. You got to put away Lord and God. You got to put away all your pagan gods that you're worshiping. You got to clean up your mess. And the judgments that are coming will cause you to either choose to continue on in your evil ways or choose him. I know there's some Gentiles today that are, they're choosing him today. Good for them. It will go well for you in the long run. Not compared to these ones that are stubborn and stiff-necked, just like our forefathers, just like our people today. They think that their righteousness is sufficient. They don't need to do anything. They're rapture ready for heaven. There's no unholiness going up there. If our people were severely punished and almost destroyed by Alahayam Yahawah through slaveries because of the same thing that the Gentiles are doing, what makes them think that it's going to be different for them? It's the same law for everybody. Same law. We are called the peculiar people, not the Gentiles. Not the Christians, because they're Gentiles too. Yashraal is called a peculiar people, a special treasure, a royal priesthood, and we got to walk in that knowledge. Let's read on. And they're claiming our dwelling places in heaven, which are meant for the southern kingdom when the chariots come for them, and much, much, much more false doctrines, false claims. They're claiming all our inheritance. They're claiming everything that belonged to us. Suddenly it belongs to them. Unbelievable. Christianity, along with every other religion or religious organization, whether a church or a camp, Hebrew Israelite camp, are plagued with many false doctrines. These false doctrines are misinterpretation and misappropriation of our prophecies and promises. And they were done so by the same shadow people who created all the religions of the world, including the Hebrew Israelite camps. A lot of those people that run in those camps are agents for these same shadow people. They hijacked our prophecies. Are you understanding the kind of problems that we have as a people here now? Do Do you understand why Alahayam Yahawah have to get us out of here? I know people, our own people, they don't want to leave. They want to remain. They want to stay on the earth. Just put me someplace in a wilderness on this earth and protect us there so that we can remain on the earth. They want to change the plan of Alahayam. And his plan is not to leave the southern kingdom here on the earth. He's going to remove us completely. He has to. We have seen enough. We have been through enough. After listening to all these things that I'm saying, do you not think you've had enough? Why on earth you want to stay back in this place? Come back when peace will reign. And we will be returning with Hamashiach for the 1,000-year reign. That's 1,000 years of peace and onward from there. We will never be slaves or servants again. We will never be looked down upon ever again. Either you treat us with great respect or off with your heads. Alahayam will destroy anyone who tries to destroy his people. You can't try to destroy us anymore ever again. After the northern kingdom is regathered and protected, this is by the the fifth trumpet, that they will be sealed, and he will have them surrounded by his glory, by his fire, front and back. After that, there will be no one else trying to enslave us ever again. And we don't ever have to fight any more battles ever again. All the battles now will be fought by Hamashiach and Yahawah. And we'll be standing there watching when Hamashiach returns with the southern kingdom, the saints on white horses, wearing white linen. That's us. When he reunites us together with the northern kingdom, when we ride out into the valley of decision, which is the valley of Jehoshaphat, we'll be watching him destroy our enemies. We don't have to raise a sword. We don't have to raise anything. We don't have to do anything. We just stand there and watch. Just like our forefathers when they were standing on the shores of the Red Sea. They stood there and watched Alahayam Yahawah destroy all Pharaoh's armies and their chariots and his chariots as well. They watched. They didn't raise an arm. They didn't raise a finger. They didn't raise a bow or spear. They had none. Because they came out as these weakling people. And he brought them into the wilderness and trained them to be warriors. That was another reason why he brought them out. To train them to be warriors. All right. And this is where we are today. Exactly where we are today. They hijacked our prophecies. They all belong to us. And yes, he's going to share a small portion with those who obey him. Speaking of the Gentiles. But you got to go through some stuff. You can't escape it. Think of all the things that the Negroes have gone through for generations. The way how we have been treated and still treated today. All right. I know some people, this one person wrote to me telling me that I need to get over. You need to get over the slavery talk. That's what she said. Oh, you need to get over that. There were other people that were slaves. And she started talking about the Irish that were slaves and these other people were slaves. I left up the comment and I made sure that I responded to. I didn't disrespect her or anything. She wasn't being disrespectful, but she was a little bit naive. How can you forget something that you're still plagued with today? It's not like we walking around. We can walk into a bank and ask for a loan or or build a business and be successful. No, we're plagued. And this is part of the curses that came because of our disobedience. So don't get me wrong. But don't expect me to forget. Because when you forget, you go back and do the same stupid thing over again. So we can't forget. All right. And she's talking about the Irish. Well, the Irish were taken as slaves, but they still remain as Irish. They still remain their identity. But look at what they did with us. Removed our identity, removed our culture, removed our worship, removed everything. Our language, everything they removed. They didn't do that with the Irish. There's no other people that have been captured as slaves and this has been done to them. Even the same Israelites that claim in this hollow something. You know, when that man called Hitler put them in camps and stuff, did he remove their identity? No. When they left there, those that escaped, because it wasn't as many as they claimed to be, but anyways, the few that escaped, they still kept their identity. Their identity remained intact throughout the whole scenario. We're the only people that they deleted everything to ensure that we never knew who we are and who Alahayam Yahawah is. And you want me to forget this? All right. Let's look at Yochanan chapter 14, verse 2. That's the book of John chapter 14, verse 2. In my Abba's house are many mansions. If it were not so, I would have told you. That's a promise that Hamashiach made to the southern kingdom. I go to prepare a place for you. And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come again and receive you unto myself, that where I am, there you may be also. And you got the Christians out there thinking that this is rapture talk. This is Jesus going up to heaven to prepare a place for his Christian brethren. How wrong they are, right? Matthew chapter 24, verse 30. And then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven, and then shall all the tribes of the earth mourn, and they shall see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. And he shall send his angels with a great sound of a trumpet, and they shall gather together his elect from the four winds, from one end of heaven to the other. And they claim this too, along with many other scriptures, many other prophecies. They claim this is rapture. I thought rapture is 1 minute you're there and next minute you're gone. Your clothes laying on the ground, as if your whole body just vanished out of it. But now they're claiming this to be them being raptured. Suddenly now they're going to all the different books in the Bible and claiming the prophecies to be theirs. And it's pointing them to their rapture. They're looking at the feast days and they're saying the feast days are their rapture feast days. Rapture dates to get out of here. As long as you believe in Jesus and you have his spirit, you're not subject to the wrath of of God. They don't use Alahayam. They said you're not subject to the wrath of God. God will not turn his wrath upon himself, and as long as you have his Holy Spirit, he will not let you face his wrath. All this false doctrines that they believe in, that they have stolen and twisted them to fit their narratives, to make them now feel that they are such a unique and special people. then they need to go back to the Bible from the beginning and see who the true people of the Bible are. It's not the Christians. The Christians weren't there from the beginning, from Genesis. It was Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov. Okay, we kind of skipped over Adam and Hawa, but we go to the one who received the covenant. It was Abraham. Abraham had a son, Yitzhak, and the covenant was passed on to him. And Yitzhak had two sons. One was rejected by Alahayam, called Osha or Esau, and the other one was received as the son of the promise, to receive the inheritance, to receive the covenant. And his name was Yaakov, which was later changed to Yashra'al. Yashra'al had 12 sons, and the covenant was also passed on to them, the progenitors of the 12 tribes of Yashra'al, which we today have access to the covenant that was renewed with the blood of Hamashiach. That's who it's for. He hasn't changed the direction of the covenant to another kind of people. It has always been the offspring of Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov. How did these Christian people get in there? How did this church get in there? That's made up of all kinds of peoples, all kinds of races. How did they get in there? Yashra'al is only one kind of people, Negroes. We're not mixed up with Chinese and all kind of different races. We're one race, one people. All right? All right. Let's move on to the next line. Let's see where I left off. Okay, let's read Matthew chapter 24 again, verse 30. I think I read it before, but I want to read it again. And then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven, and then shall all the tribes of the earth mourn, and they shall see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. You know why they're going to mourn? Because when they look upon his face and see what he looks like, they will have all reason to mourn. He does not look like a Caucasian man, not like the ones that you see in pictures. He looks like us. So obviously, the whole world now is going to mourn when they see his face. And he shall send his angels with a great sound of a trumpet, and they shall gather together his elect. That means the chosen ones, the selected ones from the four winds, from one end of heaven to the other. He's coming back for his people, not the Christian churches, not the Christians, sorry. These prophecies and promises are also the heavenly inheritance of Yashra'al, waiting for all those who overcome the evil of this world. So even us today, the authentic offspring of Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov, that these promises and prophecies are meant for, if we are not first in covenant with Alahayam Yahawah, if we do not transform to be like the people that he has called in his word by obeying and walking in all of his laws and commandments and statutes and judgment, if we don't do those things, then we're going to miss out too, just like the Gentiles, just like these Christians. We're going to miss out. We got to transform too. We got to change our ways too. We got to become a holy people before we can adhere, before we can claim these prophecies, claim these promises, claim our inheritance. And what is our inheritance? The land of Yashra'al is our inheritance. Alahayam Yahawah is our inheritance. so that when we are dwelling in his presence and he is in our midst, then that is also our inheritance. Yet the church has laid claims to our inheritance too, as many Christians believe that they will enter into the presence of our Abba and dwell with him there as Gentiles. They will remain as they are and enter into heaven. I don't know which Bible they're reading, because all the things that Yashraal, the 12 tribes of Yashraal, had to do in order for Alahayam Yahawah to dwell in their midst while they were living in the wilderness and while they were living in their land, I don't see the Gentiles doing. Not the ones that call themselves Christians. There may be a handful of Gentiles that have removed themselves from those pagan practices. I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about the ones that are calling on Jesus and whatever gods that they have out there. They're not transforming themselves to be like the people in the book. They're remaining as they are. And you know what they say? Oh, well, I'm imperfect and there's no way that I could ever be perfect. Of course not. With that kind of mindset, you would never be perfect. But what is perfection? Perfection is never making a mistake. That is man's interpretation of what perfection is. The interpretation of perfection is being complete. You're made complete with Alahayam Yahawah through his son. Now you can be perfect. So this rubbish that they're talking about, oh, well, we have faults and we will always have faults and we will never be perfect enough to be able to be this, to do this and do that. That's all excuses because they want to continue on as Gentiles. They want to continue on in their sins, living like sinners and thinking because they said a sinner's prayer that now that they are in right standing with the Most High. Doesn't work that way. You got to be made complete with him. And when you believe in Hamashiach, Yahawah or Hamashiach, and you are given now Ruach HaKadosh, and Ruach HaKadosh now starts to bring revelation to you. He starts to enlighten you so that the word now of Alahayam Yahawah works as a light that shines in the dark places in our hearts and in our minds to remove sin, to remove even the roots of sin that may be hidden there. All that is part of the transformation process. You can't just walk in to his throne room and say, here I am. I'm a Christian and I believe in Jesus and I used to enjoy eating pork and ham. I'm eating bologna and all the different garbage foods. But hey, I'm here. You've been waiting for me. You're not even going to get anywhere near him because you're unholy and you're unrighteous. Let's see where he left off. These false doctrines and teachings have been handed down through the ages by the agents of the shadow people who were and still are the pastors of all these denominational churches. You see all these big pastors that you see, they call them what do they call them now? The prosperity preachers. All those ones that got tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of members in their churches. They're all agents of these same shadow people, misleading people. Listen to what they're talking about. They're talking about Jesus. From the time they start saying Jesus, you know where they belong and who they're serving. You don't need to go much further. You don't even need to go deep into what they're teaching. Just that one fact that they're calling on Jesus should tell you everything you need to know about these people. That's all you need to know. Who are you calling on? If you want to know whether or not a person is in sound doctrine and following the Most High, figure out who they're calling on. Some of them call on Yah, but then when you listen to them long enough, they're calling on Yahuwah or Yahweh. All right, enough about that. Through these agent pastors, many Gentiles are deceived into thinking that the inheritance in the Bible belongs to them. They see themselves as the bride, the elect, and the saints spoken of in the Bible, when in fact they are Gentiles, pagan worshippers. What do you want to call them? But they're not the people of Alahayam, and they're certainly not the people of the book. They don't fit the criteria. They don't worship him the way how he wants to be worshipped, and they don't fit the criteria. The church has superseded the people in the Bible. They've replaced them. They would claim that they're not in replacement theology. They use that with Israel, the people, the fakers in our land. There are some churches that say, yes, we have replaced Israel, the ones that are in the land there. But they have not replaced us. But this is the mentality of Christians today. They think that they have superseded the people in the Bible, and some of them even think that they have replaced them. So all that is written now in the Bible belongs to them. All right? And what they have not taken claim to is handed over to Israel, like our land. You see, they can't really take the land because the land was promised to, excuse me, the land was promised to the 12 tribes of Yashraal, which they're called the 12 tribes of Israel. Right? It didn't say anything about the church. So the only thing that they're going to toss over to Israel's side is the land. Okay, you're already there anyway. And you fulfilled the prophecy in Yeshua chapter 66, which kind of benefits us because now we are rapture ready to get out of this place. They hijacked our heavenly inheritance. This is what these people have done. And all these people, all these Christians that go into church and all these different denominations and whatnot, they're all part of the plan, all part of the plot. They're playing, whether in ignorance or knowingly. They're all part of the plot. Psalm 83 plot. Shalawam chapter 32 verse 13. Remember Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yashraal, your servants, to whom you swore by yourself, and said unto them, I will multiply your seed as the stars of heaven. Did he say the church? No. Did he say the Christians? No. And all this land that I have spoken of will I give unto your seed. Did he say the Christian churches? No. He said the seed of Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, which turned out to be the 12 tribes of Yashraal. And they shall inherit it forever. Did he say it was only temporary until they were taken in slavery and forgotten about? No. Because he's going to bring us back to our land. Leviticus chapter 20 verse 24. But I have said unto you, you shall inherit their land. This is Alahayam Yahawah speaking to the 12 tribes of Yashraal about the Canaanites, the giants that were dwelling in the land, the promised land. And I will give it unto you to possess it, a land that flows with milk and honey, with richness and sweetness. I am Yahawah Alahayakam, your Alahayam, congregational. He's speaking to them as plural, which have separated you from other people. We are a separated people. We're not part of other groups, other nations. We are a nation unto our own selves. So when you look at us, you're not going to see Chinese and Indian and all kinds of stuff. No. You may see slightly different levels of darkness, but that's who we are. We're all Negroes. All right. 1 Peter chapter 1, verse 3. Blessed be Alahayam and Abba of our Adawan Yahawah Hamashiach, who according to his abundant mercy have begotten us again unto a lively hope by the resurrection of Yahawah Hamashiach from the dead. So when we were living as Gentiles, we were considered dead. But when we believe in Hamashiach, we were made alive again by the quickening of his wrought. So you got the ones out there that are dismissing Hamashiach too. All right, verse 4. To an inheritance incorruptible and undefiled, and that fades not away, reserved in heaven for you. For who? The people of Alahayam, who are kept by the power of Alahayam through faith unto salvation, ready to be revealed in the last time, in the last days. Soon the world will see who we are, once and for all. And still, you're going to have people hating on us. But thankfully, the southern kingdom will be out of here. We don't need to deal with that hatred anymore. It will now be the northern kingdom that will have to deal with it. It all belongs to Yashraal, the Negroes. Although a small portion of our inheritance will be given to the Gentiles, those who will be preserved and saved at the very end of the age and at the beginning of the new heavens, new earth, and new Yerushalayim. So I don't know why they're complaining. We got nothing in slavery. But Alahayam is generous. The same Gentiles that either rejected us or enslaved us. All right. Well, actually, the ones that enslaved us, he's going to destroy, right? And them and their offspring. But the ones that really didn't have a hand in our demise, because you have nations that had no part in it. Those are the ones that Alahayam, if they get their act together and humble themselves before Alahayam and recognize us as his people, then there's hope for them. If they persist in hating on our people, there's no hope for them. End of story. He's not going to miss them. He's going to cause us, Yashraal, all 12 tribes, to multiply, to be like the stars in heaven, to be like the sand on the seashore. Where do they come in? We don't really need them. But he said, you know what? Just like you serve them, they got to come in to serve you. But I will treat them way better than how you were treated. And you, my people, will treat them way better than how you were treated. Because by this time, we will be filled with the glory of Alahayam Yahawah. There will be no resentment, no memory of the bitterness that we had to go through as Negroes here on this earth. And that's why we will treat those that are serving us 1,000, 100 million times better than how they treated us. And it will be coming from the heart, and it will be coming with love. Getting a name too. So even though they will look different from us, they will still be wearing the same, somewhat same garments, and they will be a part of our tribes. They'll be given the name of a tribe to be a part of. And all of us together will be the bride of Alahayam Yahawah, actually the bride of Hamashiach, his son. We're going to be a blessing to his son. But that's if they want that. But if they want that, they got to surrender that high-mindedness that they have of who they think they are in this world. You see, the world are also, these same shadow people also program them to think that they are higher and better than we are. Because they got all the high positions in this world. We got the low positions in this world. All right. They got to change that. The unfortunate thing is that Gentiles generally are not satisfied with a little. They want it all. That's why they go into lands and they take over countries, nations, their resources. They don't want to trade fairly. They just want to come and take. That's the mentality of Gentiles. And this is the same destructive greed that had caused them to become the villainous slave masters, which was their evil trademark, to persecute and torment our forefathers even unto death. It's typical. When you read of the things that our forefathers had to go through, I don't even want to read it. I learned about some of it. I say enough. Enough. It's enough to know the bitterness that they had to go through. Today, many of their offspring, speaking of the slave masters, their offspring, still cannot come to grips with the idea of the Negroes being the people of the Bible, and this is to their demise. Not all of them going to believe it. Not all of them want to believe it. They're happy to think that those people, those Caucasian-looking people up in the land calling themselves Israel, that look like them, is good for them. They're satisfied with the fact that when they look at a picture of their Jesus, he looks like them. Heaven forbid if the Messiah or the Savior looks like us. What will they do? All right. There's not another people who are hated for no reason, enslaved and treated horrendously and hijacked of everything, including their name, like the Negroes. No other people that this has ever happened to. But we were warned about it in Deuteronomy chapter, I think it's chapter 28, from verse 15 onward. We were warned that if we break the covenant with Alahayam Yahawah, that all these bad things were going to happen to us. So all that we have been through is because of rebellion. And that's why you got the foolish ones out there looking for reparations. Oh, well, these other people got reparations. Even Israel got reparations. These other people got reparations. So where is our reparation? We don't deserve reparations, even if it was supposed to come to us. We don't deserve it, because the enslavement that we went through, this transatlantic slave trade that we went through, our forefathers went through, was punishment from Alahayam Yahawah, and you want to be paid for it? You have no right. And I'm speaking to our people, our wicked people that running after money. running after mammon. You have no right to ask for reparation for something that we did, something that our forefathers caused. And yes, we had to pay the piper, even though we did not do it. But look at our people today. Would we have done any different? No. We're still a bunch of wicked people, a bunch of miserable, wicked people. That's who we are. We can't even come together and support one another. I see it all the time. I got a friend that's suffering, and he's part of a Hebrew Israelite camp. And you think they're helping him? He's sick. Sick in his body and weak and needs help. You think any of them lifting up a finger to help him? No. And I asked him about it. He said, well, you know how it is with people, blah, blah, blah. He making excuses for them instead of acknowledging the obvious. You're in a pagan camp. So they got a pagan Gentile mentality. All for me and none for you. They don't want to share. Like even the Gentiles, to some degree, they share amongst one another and help one another. But we don't like to help one another because we're wicked. And you're wondering why we were enslaved? This is the reason why we had to be enslaved, because what you're seeing now is exactly what was happening in our land. We mistreated one another. Alahayam gave us judgment so that we don't mistreat one another. But we broke all of them and started mistreating one another. Wickedness. There has got to be a reason why our enemies fear us so much to do this evil thing, to carry out this conspiracy of hijacking us, and for so long a time. This then gives credibility that we must be of fearsome importance. The devils are afraid of us because once we are awakened to our identity and we start to call on Alahayam Yahawah, they know it's only a matter of time that they are taken down. But this time is going to be forever. Look at in the Bible and see how many times when we called on Alahayam Yahawah and we started to follow his ways, how he went out ahead of us and warred on our behalf and destroyed our enemies or caused our enemies to destroy each other. The same king, Jehoshaphat, when they went down, there were bodies everywhere. I think that was the one. No, or was that Gideon? That was Gideon. I get confused sometimes. All right? Alahayam Yahawah told him just take 300 men, divide them into 3 companies, and surround the camps that were down in the valley, and sound the trumpets and break the vessels and expose the light. And you see them cutting down one another. They didn't have to raise a hand to do anything. They destroy themselves. And that's when Alahayam goes ahead of us and war on our behalf. We don't have to lift a finger really. We just got to obey him. Do the things that he said to do. And then all will be well. How about when Joshua, Yahawah, when I took down Jericho? They had a wall that was so thick people were living in the walls. But Alahayam told them to march around the wall 7 times. And on the 7th time, blow the trumpets, and he's going to lower the wall. What did he do? He stepped on the wall, and the wall came crashing down. It didn't even fall over. It came down so that they can go over the wall and go in and destroy the people. Not one of them lost. Not one of our brethren we're lost in that fight. They have to be afraid of us because we are a fearful people, fearsome. And not only about us as a people, but us as worshippers of the true and living Alahayam Yahawah, that terrifies them so. They're afraid of Alahayam Yahawah. And they know that as long as there's a breach between us and him, he's not going to do much to help us. He's already helping us by stopping us from being annihilated. All right? That much he will do to protect us. But to step in and destroy our enemies, no, no, no. We got to come back to him first. We got to repent. And we got to be in covenant with him again. And in order to do that, we got to be transformed to be his people once again. So this is the battle here with the enemies, with our enemies, to keep us from being the people of Alahayam Yahawah, called after his name, or called by his name. Of all people on this earth, we are to be feared because of Alahayam, for he is to be feared. Yet we must understand that all this evil befell us because our forefathers fell into pagan worship, disobedience, and rebellion. And so we all, for these 4 generations, have endured great persecution as our punishment. Our forefathers did the crime, and we must continue to do the time for their crime. Because look at us today. Many of our people haven't learned our lesson. They have not looked at what our forefathers have done and say, you know what, I'm going to do the opposite of what they did. No, they continue on with the same wickedness. But soon our sentence will be completed and we will be set free to reclaim everything that we have lost. And do you know how we know this to be true? Already we have been awakened by Alahayam as to who we really are, to reclaim some things like our identity, our worship to him, our culture, our laws, and a few others. But soon we will have it all. And the same sentence that we had to serve temporarily will be handed down to the wicked, all who had a hand in this wicked conspiracy to try to destroy us as a people. And this will include their descendants as well. But this time the sentence will be served forever. That's the lake of fire. You see, our forefathers did the crime and we today are doing the time. So we're the offspring that were born in captivity. So of course, the slave masters and their offspring will have to do the time. Right? And they will be living in eternal hell's fire. You know how? You know why? Because the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree. A lot of them will smile to us to our faces, but their hearts are black towards us. They hate us. All right. You think because somebody's smiling at you that they like you? The Barayam chapter 7 verse 6. For you are a holy people unto Yahawah Alahayam. Yahawah Alahayam has chosen you to be a special people unto himself, above all people that are upon the face of the earth. Excuse me. Did he say this about the Christians? He said this about the 12 tribes of Yashraal. Verse 7. Yahawah did not set his love upon you, nor choose you because you were more in number, for you were the fewest of all people. But because Yahawah loved you and because he would keep the oath which he had sworn unto your fathers, had Yahawah brought you out with a mighty hand and redeemed you out of the house of bondmen from the hand of Pharaoh, king of Matsarayah. Did this happen to the Christians? No. No. Alahayam chapter 14, verse 2. In fact, did it happen to any other nation? Did it happen to those people in our land? No. Alahayam chapter 14, verse 2. For you are a holy people unto Yahawah Alahayam, and Yahawah has chosen you to be a peculiar people unto himself. And peculiar sagala, meaning valued property, possession. We belong to him. A treasure. That's what he calls us. So you think he's going to discard us? No. We're peculiar unto him. We are the ones that have been selected, that have been chosen to be his people, to be in covenant with him. And he's not going to forsake that covenant above all the nations that are upon the earth. So we are to be a peculiar people unto himself above all the nations that are upon the earth. That's who we are. Soon the entire world will be made aware of this amazing discovery that the Negroes are Yashraal, the true people of Alahayam, the true people written about in the book from Genesis all the way to Revelation, and even in the Apocrypha. That's who we are. And my message to all Gentiles: stop hijacking us. Stop it. All right. That's the ending of this exhortation, or food for thought, whatever you want to call it. But it is something to look at, something to understand, because let me tell you something. Things are coming down the pike. And we're seeing escalations again. The birth pangs are coming closer and closer together. And we are looking for, I'm hoping, this is my hope. I know before Passover will be because Passover season is our time of a regathering. And Passover has already gone for this year. So we have next year where it's going to come again. So we're looking ahead for 2025 to be out of here. If not 2025, 2026. But I'm hoping and praying that it's 2025. Because I'm hearing some things happening. I'm like, okay, this is sounding good to my ears, because it just means that our time is coming up. You know, they're talking about a whole bunch of things that they're planning to do between November and sometime next year. All right. And that's music to my ears, to be honest with you, because when I hear about these things, it makes me feel like, okay, yeah, we're getting ready to get out of here. He did tell us to watch and pray. That's what we're doing. So now we're going to complete with the blessing for Yashraal, taken from Madabar chapter 6, verses 24 to 26. That's the book of Numbers chapter 6, verses 24 to 26. Yabarakak Yahawah wa Yashamarak. May Yahawah bless you and keep you. Ya'ar Yahawah panayo alayak wa yahanak. May Yahawah cause his face to shine upon you and have favor upon you. Yasha'a Yahawah panayo alayak wa yasham lak Shalawam. May Yahawah lift up his face upon you and give you peace. And now I'm going to recite what we were commanded to recite when we lie down, when we get up, when we go out, and when we come in, taken from Alahayam chapter 6, verses 4 and 5. That's Deuteronomy chapter 6, verses 4 and 5. Shama'o Yashwa'al, Yahawah Alahayana, Yahawah Achad, wa Ahabath Ath, Yahawah Alahayak, Bakal Babak, Wabakal Napashat, Wabakal Ma'adak. Hear, O Yashwa'al, Yahawah our Alahayam is one Yahawah. And you shall love Yahawah your Alahayam with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your might. And with that I will say, Shalawam, Shalawam. All praises to the Most High. Abba Yah.